everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Matrix Dialogues. I'm your host, Austin Boozer, and back home. Here we are, back in the studio here in Houston. The last few months, traveling quite a bit to New York, LA, and Hawaii. The last 4 or 5 episodes. Okay. So between being in New York, LA, and Hawaii the last few months, I'm traveling a lot, kind of seeing a bunch of things, doing a bunch of things. So it's good to be back home. Good to try and get a little downtime. But anyway, the point of today's episode, it's my first episode to do by myself, so apologies in advance if it's a bit messy. I'm a bit nervous, I won't lie. There's a comfort in having someone sitting across from you to talk to. It's a bit weird when it's just kind of you essentially talking to yourself. But I just wanted to kind of go over some things, some key lessons I learned this year. And we also took some questions from previous guests. We allowed them to kind of take a chance to ask me a question. And so I haven't seen them. They're on this notes page in front of me, but I haven't seen them. I prepped my material year, like my thoughts from the year above that. So that's kind of what we're going to hit on today, is go through the things, my most valuable lessons from 2024, and then segue into the questions from my previous guests. So anyway, I guess we'll just jump right into it. So the first one for me on things that I thought or took away from this year were being vulnerable is always worth it. There's a lot of stigma or question around, is it worth it to be vulnerable? And maybe that's not for everyone. And of course, there's mindfulness to time and place and who, but especially with any kind of real relationship, whether that's just your friend, partner, anything of that nature, I think there's a weight of importance to the vulnerability. And, that doesn't mean it's going to be not scary or less intimidating, but there's a power in the vulnerability that is needed, that is warranted. And not giving it will only cost you more, I think, with time. What I mean by that is, if you're like, oh, I don't want to be my true self or really like show someone the real side of me because maybe someone took advantage of that before, or I'm scared that they'll like me less. By truly showing that vulnerability, all you guarantee is that you'll get an expedited answer on if they really do like you or not, or if that's someone that you truly can be yourself with. And though that's scary, it's still worth it, right? Because worst case scenario, they just don't like you that much. And that helps expedite the timeline in which you can gradually move towards the type of person who will appreciate you and like you and love you and support that authentic version of you rather than not. So that's it for the first one. The next one is you'll never regret working hard. I feel like that goes without saying, but I never have regretted a workout or a run. Obviously, that maybe didn't result in injury. Not happened yet, thankfully. Fingers crossed. But, the idea that there's so much of this balance pushed today culturally. And I do have a stigma against it. I think a lot of it's nonsense. I think most people don't work hard enough. Most people want to pat themselves, or they do pat themselves on the back for work that really isn't actually that worthwhile, or that they actually didn't do a lot for. And so I would encourage everyone to, just lean more into working hard. There's just so much you gain from working hard, not even in a dollar value or lump sum of who you become, but just in what you figure out about yourself, the journey of who you become through hard work. The testament of a person it takes to be able to do hard work. So I would say, yeah, that one. You'll never regret working hard. I've never regretted any work I've done. Never regretted staying up late to finish a project. I've never, never regretted the time I took to prep a script, or the time it took me the effort I took to try and get a guest on the show, or how hard I tried to get a promotion, or, the time I spent at an event to meet people. Like I don't regret any of the hard work. And you don't get to pick when the rewards or when you'll reap those benefits, but there's no such thing as a zero value for hard work. I believe there's always a return on it. One that I've seen a lot as we're getting into the holiday, or we're coming out of the holidays here, is be who you really are, no matter what. And if that's too much for someone, then maybe they're not meant for you. This kind of has multiple meanings for me, but the big two for me were just I didn't really enjoy casual, meaningless conversations with people. I really enjoyed more deeper, intimate conversations. And that's why I started the show in the first place. But even in my day-to-day friendships, I felt forced into, the nuances of how's everybody doing? Let's talk about the weather. And that was just something that didn't really resonate a whole lot for me. I didn't enjoy it. It felt fake to me. It wasn't who I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to talk to people about their fears, their worries, what created the most anxiety, what were they the most proud of. I wanted to have those deeper level conversations. So just kind of maybe ties to the vulnerability one that I started with, but just be that version of you. And if people can't accept that, then that's okay. But more importantly, the other one that I've seen a lot recently, and like I mentioned in the holidays, is that so many people are so unwilling to be who they actually are, say the things they want to say, have those harder conversations. I talked to a lot of people during the holidays, and most of them didn't want to be at the places they were at. They didn't want to be around the people they were around. And to me, that just feels insane. You're so willing to be so proactive in other aspects of your life, make your own decisions, live your life true to yourself, but then just because Christmas or Thanksgiving or a holiday rolls around, all of a sudden you forego every bit of that for others. And I'm not saying there's not a time to, make sacrifices, indeed, but if on your own time you're choosing to be miserable, I just can't understand that. So if you don't want to be somewhere, or there's somewhere else you'd rather be, or people you'd rather be around, I don't think you should subjugate yourself to having to be around those types of people. And I have very intentionally in my life in the last few years made some of those harder decisions to not be around certain people that I didn't want to be around. I'm sure that was a little uncomfortable initially, but I learned that not as many people cared as I thought would. Nobody, actually, ironically, no one has called and been like, "Hey, why haven't you been at Christmas?" or "Why weren't you at Thanksgiving?" And in my head, it was this unbelievably large monster that I could never conquer or get over. But in reality, it actually wasn't that bad. So I would invite anyone else who's, you want to be with your significant other or with a group of friends, or maybe just not around the people that you're currently spending that time with. I invite you to try and lean into that. And maybe it's not just for the holidays, but just in general, whatever the case may be, on your birthday or whatever, like, be authentic to you, right? The next one is it's okay for it to be hard. I think a lot of things in our life we want to pursue or lean into having a desire to accomplish, and then we get kind of upset that it's hard. But generally, the reason it's hard is because it has a value at the end. If you were just pursuing and achieving meaningless things, it wouldn't mean a whole lot anyway. So the fact that it's hard usually can either be credited to the fact you're doing it wrong, or it has some greater output at the end of the day. There is a greater return on that work that you're doing. So don't denounce that it's hard, accept that it's supposed to be hard, right? Running a marathon is hard. Getting really in shape is hard. But again, the result that you get from those things, it pays its dividends, right? It's not supposed to be easy, because if it was easy, then it kind of wouldn't mean anything. Realizing that you don't have to be special to be great. I think that was something that I had maybe a negative relationship to a lot in my younger years, my earlier 20s, is that I thought people who were achieving or doing crazy things were these superhuman people, right? Almost superhero-like to be exact. They were people that weren't like everyone else. And, they aren't like everyone else, but they're also not insanely special. They maybe have a trait or two that maybe to their detriment is they're very high end, right? Like an ability to endure hardship or resilience, or, they're very hard on themselves collectively. But they don't have this unparalleled amount of skills, or, again, like, they're just a normal person as well. And for so long, I thought people who did crazy or great things, or had achievements that were high, were just from a different planet. And that may sound foolish to say, but that's something I learned a lot this year that actually wasn't the case. You just have to truly be consistent. There is no hack, there's no cheat code, there's no shortcut. just have to learn, and you have to be willing to learn that you don't know a lot initially. But if you're consistent enough over a period of time, that you can be great. The next one is be grateful for the uncertainty, the unknown, and the doubts. Kind of just like it's okay for it to be hard. This one to me feels a lot the same as, at times we want to know, we want to understand, we don't want to worry, we don't want to have doubt, but it's okay to have those. And again, they aren't necessarily negatives, they're just things that come along for the ride. I can tell you all that I've had many times of uncertainty, doubt, many unknowns through just doing the show, let alone as a father or as an athlete, as a friend. And at the end of the day, it all works out. I'm no less for not knowing or having the proper answer then. And I'm grateful for it now, actually. I'm finding an appreciation for those unknowns, for the uncertainties, for the times I didn't know how it was all going to come together, because ironically, somehow, it always did. Now that's paid off and been a blessing. So just be able to appreciate the unknowns, the doubts, and the uncertainties. Anyway, so the next one is always tell the truth. Again, feels like maybe a very obvious one, but one that I just have leaned consistently more into, especially this year, and having those harder conversations. But they're the truth, and I should have them. There's always there's a mindfulness and a tactfulness to the timing of the truth, but you should always still tell the truth. So, and the benefit of it will pay dividends to you in the zero-sum game of your life. It's nothing I regret. I don't ever regret telling the truth. It's made my life simpler, better, and collectively made me a better person by doing so. Another one I guess I've taken away from this year is, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And it's kind of just changing my relationship to fear and putting myself in the position where I'm more accepting and more okay with fear being present. I don't hate it. I don't complain about the fact that I'm a little nervous or a little, even if you do complain, to me, there's times where fear is necessary. It's kind of a discriminator, if you will, to will you actually pursue the thing? Well, if you weren't scared, of course, everyone would pursue it, right? But the fact that maybe you are a little scared, a little uncertain, a little doubtful, and you pursue it anyway. So just be okay with the fear, be okay with the doubt, and be okay with being afraid, right? Change your relationship with fear. Don't look at it, don't view it as something negative. Use it as an indicator to know that maybe this is the thing that you should be doing. Next year, I have decided to run 100 miles because it feels scary to me, because I'm a little fearful of it. It feels like something that I can't do. That's how I know it's something that I should try and take on, that I should pursue. And I know you can probably think of things in your own lives that you're scared to do, but you should do. So change that relationship you have to fear. This one, man, it's powerful. You can change the way you think. I thought for so long, the things I've come to know in life, they're just that. I can never quite erase them or let go of them. I have to think this way forever. And through being a nerd and learning a lot more about psychology and neurology, there's data to prove that we can actually rewire the tracks in our mind to think a certain way. Just as much as if you walked in a field of grass extensively over and over and over again, you could, kind of create a path. But if you stopped walking it, the grass would regrow. And then you could just start walking in a different spot. Well, those are the kind of the way our brain works is almost the same way. If we stop continuously taking that thought pattern and try and start thinking a different way, with enough time, what we thought we knew will kind of fade away, and we'll be able to craft this new way of thinking. So I don't know enough words for it. It was remarkable to realize that was a potential thing that we could have. That the way you have been taught to think, the things that the perceptions you have, you can change them if you want to. It won't be easy and it will take time, but it's doable just as much as you can. You've always been overweight. You can become healthy. It's going to take time and consistency, but can lose the weight, and it doesn't have to come back either. You can remain healthy. Maybe you've been in unhealthy relationships, or you've been an unhealthy minded person, mentally and emotionally. Like, you can change that, and you don't have to go back to it. Again, time, consistency, and effort, but you can change those things. Starting is the hardest part. A lot of people have heard me say this to them this year. Starting is the hardest part. I believe nothing is more challenging. I think continuing is easy. It's easy to just continue to show up and go to the gym. Starting to go to the gym is hard. It's easy to continue running. Starting to run is hard. It's hard to start a podcast. It's been much easier to continue to do it and continue to do it. Starting is very hard. It's not that as you progress, the challenges don't get bigger or harder per se, but you have more knowledge, you have more skills, you have more resources to handle those challenges that you are taking on. So, it's like, as it gets, well, it's going to get harder. Well, like, yeah, but you're going to become more equipped to handle the harder challenges anyway, because you're going to be that much more prepared, that much more equipped, and that much more skilled. So just know that it's okay that starting is the hardest part, because it does get easier, quite literally. And this last one is be mindful of what you're asking for. A lot of people say they want strength, but then to have that said strength, your strength will be tested, which will probably result in some failure, or you not being strong enough for the things that you're initially trying to do. If you're asking for wisdom, then you're probably going to have your judgment tested, likely resulting in failure to gain that wisdom. And if you ask for patience, then you may have to work harder and longer than others to get the same outcome. And if you say you want a good life isn't a life that's easy. It's a life that makes you a good person. And that is actually a hard life. So just be understanding of what are the downstream consequences, or the needed result, the needed things to actually give me that outcome, that strength, that wisdom, that courage, that life, that good life. They're actually usually, and when you can put the logic to it, they're not the things you'd think. To get wisdom is going to require so much failure. To get strength is going to require you being weaker than necessary initially, right, and failing. So I think a lot of people say they want these great traits, but they kind of forget what actually produces them, right? So those are kind of my high-level overviews of the things I really took away from this year. So now we're going to move on to me reviewing these questions submitted by my previous guests on the show. Okay. I guess I'll just go in order of the episodes, because that's how the questions are put in front of me. From episode 1, my boy Jay says, if my dad was here today, what would I tell him? That's tough. For those who don't know, my dad passed away about 10 years ago now. Was undoubtedly like my best friend. It's a tough one. If he's here, what would I tell him? Man. I would just tell him that, I don't even know if I'd tell him anything. I'd kind of be mad at him, honestly. I've had this conversation with a couple people I'm really close to. Initially, probably just be some anger, just be mad, because I was 18, or just turned 19 when he died, and I'd just become a father, and I was definitely not prepared for life without him. So that would warrant my anger. That's why that's what I would say initially. But I would just enjoy telling him about all the things that have happened since I saw him last. And I would really just ask him a lot of stuff. I would ask him if he thought I was doing a good job, if he was proud of me, if he thought I was the man or the father that he wanted me to become. God, I'd tell him all the challenges that I feel like I've overcame, that at some point I didn't believe that I could. I'd tell him I love him. Ugh, I don't like that one. That one sucked. From episode 3 with Zach, He says, he asked me, when you're feeling down or tired or lazy, what motivates you to keep going? Just think the version of me that I could become. Like, who could I be? How much could I achieve? And how much am I hindering that version of me from being present by allowing that tired or laziness to hold me back? So I would say, yeah, just I think of who I could become. Like, what's the upper limit of who I could be as a person? And I know to find that out would require me to pursue it, to chase it. So it doesn't mean that these emotions or feelings aren't present for me. There's times I'm very tired or I don't want to at all. Hell, even the word motivation is pretty seldom for me. Most of the times I'm not motivated, but I would just say, yeah, I lean into thinking of the version of me that I could become. Episode 4 with Kenneth. He says, what's your greatest fear? This one's interesting to me. Previously, I believe I've said that it's the fear of not being good enough, not solely just for myself, but for the people I care about. I think that's a terrifying thing. But more importantly, I think it's still a segmented version of that now. Just letting the people I care about down. It's probably definitely my greatest fear. I don't want to let the people I care about down. I think that one probably feels pretty simple to me. That's that one. Episode 6 with Blazin. Oh man, he says, what is my final frontier? What's the pinnacle? You keep crushing goals and fitness milestones, but what is your apex? What's the final frontier? I don't know if I think we ever get to that. I can't say there's like a thing that I feel like, if I got this, that I would be content, like that I would be good. And I used to say that a lot, like once I make this amount of money or I have this type of relationship or I look the certain way or run a certain speed that but I've really found that like those things aren't even the most valuable anyway. I've become along. It's like the journey has always meant more to me than the destination. What's the pinnacle? Man, I think it's kind of what I said there in Zach's question. If I don't know if I'll ever get to the pinnacle of me. I think it'll be this continuous pursuit of reaching and climbing, and every next version of me will make the last version like so minuscule in comparison. In comparison, rather, and realizing that maybe there isn't just no way to achieve that. Crushing the fitness goals and milestones. What's the apex? Like, I don't know. I think there's always a longer race, a heavier weight. A longer race to run, a heavier weight to pick up, more of you to become. Maybe you could emotionally control your emotions better, get a better grasp on your words, articulate yourself a little smoother and precisely, be kinder, be more loving, be more genuine. Like there's no, it's like asking a bodybuilder, like, what's the perfect physique? It's like, it doesn't exist. Your delts could always be bigger, your back could always be more defined, your abs could always be, like, there's always more there. So I wish I could give you an answer on what is the apex for me. My short answer would be just continuing to pursue whatever in my mind at this time is the pinnacle or the apex. Right now for me, it's could I run 100 miles? So something along that lines. But it's a great question. I like that. From episode 7 with Lakin, what has been your biggest, or what has been the biggest thing you've learned since starting the podcast? I actually was talking about this in therapy yesterday. There's been so many things I would not have assumed I initially would have gained from doing the show. I think the first one, like realizing, where I have trauma in areas and whatnot, but the first one being the ability to ask people for things. That's been a huge one for me. It's that sense of feeling like a burden or a bother if I ask them to be on the show, let alone, you can apply that literally to my personal life too, the ability to ask for help or anything. Something I knew was a struggle, but I didn't realize how much I would have to face it in the podcasting realm is, literally you're kind of continuously asking people for things, for their time, for their energy. And so that one's been a huge one. It's just learning that I have to continually improve who I am and face those discomforts within myself. And then her other question was, what motivates you to show up to work out? That's kind of the same question that Zach asked, but yeah, just that I want to see how good I could become, and I don't want to have wonder at the end of the day on who I could have been. Could I have been someone who was this strong or this fast? And then using that discipline I've built, that, hey, like today we go to the gym, whether we want to or not, whether we're motivated or not. And learning to some days it's not going to go as well as you plan. Like some days the 80s are going to feel way heavier than 80 pounds, or the weight you load up on the squat is going to, the warm up weight is going to feel like the working set weight. And that's okay. And learning to have that healthier relationship with yourself. But yeah, what really motivates me is just, I don't want the regret of wondering who I could have been. From episode 8 with Steve Wanamaker, he asks, when you've been at a low point in your life, what do you do to pull yourself out of that darkness? Man, this one is a deep one for me. I think you just have to really decide that's what you want collectively. You have to decide you want to leave that place. Because people can throw you, that life vest or that extension to offer to pull you out. But unless you're willing to take it, it doesn't matter how many times they throw it to you or offer it. Like you have to decide, like, hey, I'm done with this, and I've gained whatever I need from this point in this place. And contrary to belief, there is a lot to gain there. Being at low points in your life teaches you a lot more than most people would be willing to initially think that maybe you could get out of it. But you just have to decide that you're ready to move on from it, I think. I don't think anything else matters. You can have great people around you. You can have the support system. You can have all the help that a person could hope to have. But unless you're willing to actually lean into it and say, like, I'm choosing something different now, it doesn't matter. So I'd say that, like, you just have to be ready. And obviously, like, things that can help can be those good people, but I don't think you need as many as a lot of people think. Really, just one person being there is more than enough. Most people don't even have that. So you choosing it, but then obviously, some multipliers or factors that can help would be good people and the right environment, but it starts with you. It always does. And then from episode 9 with Ben Pruitt, he says, do you feel like you're fully walking in your purpose? He says, why or why not? I do. I think it's yes, I do. I do feel like I'm walking in that. Why or why not? Why? Because I'm living authentically to the way I truly think. I'm pursuing the things that are hard for me, that are nerve-wracking, that are uncomfortable for me. I'm not just sitting in the spot of comfort and then outwardly asking others to not do that. I'm constantly putting myself in positions that are a little uncomfortable, a little scary, a lot scary at times for me. And then I'm kind of giving that to you guys in real time a lot. And then his other question was, I guess the continuation of that question is, what does walking in your purpose look like to you? I think it's just that where your words and your actions align. And if you're talking about doing hard things, then you should be equivocally doing hard things. If you're talking about honesty, you should also be being honest. That there is as minimal of a discrepancy as possible between the words that you put out into the world and the correlation to your behavior. Like, they should be very one-to-one. As much as possible. So minimizing the amount of discrepancy between the things you say and the actions that you live out. That's what that is to me. Episode 10 from Mr. RJ Herrera said, "What drives me to continue these conversations?" Man, I'll be honest. I love talking to people. I do. I've always loved to talk to people. As a kid, I got in trouble in class a lot for simply running my mouth too much. So I enjoy talking to people, and this will be episode 18 or so of the show, and I don't have like the world's hugest audience now, and I'm able to continue to do it. And so, if I had 1 million people that listened, I would still, I still work just as hard. I'd still be as anal about the lighting and the camera and I do this because I enjoy it, and because really, for the first time in my life, it's been something I truly wanted to do, not felt like life told me I had to, where I was doing things with this incentive from the outside world. I've made $0 doing this show. I have, but it's costed me quite a substantial amount of time, effort, money. But I don't regret it either. I'm never like, oh man, I hate that I did that. That's how I know that it's something that I should be doing. Because I don't feel that animosity or that anger towards it. Because the handful of times that people have reached out to me and said some really powerful things or appreciation for my willingness to talk about some of these things on the show, or that the inside perspective they've gained from me or some of the guests that have been on have made it worth it. So that's what makes me continue. And whether this gets to be one of the best shows in the world, or it's just an excuse for me to continue to talk to my friends, then I'm okay with that. And then episode 11 with Mr. JP said, "What ideas or experiences are currently inspiring me, and how are they influencing my creative process?" And currently inspiring me, I think. I look to people I reference a lot on the show, like Jordan Peterson, Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozy. I'd say those are givens, but even people who aren't as big, like people who aren't famous, who are as well credited in that aspect, but they live the same type of life, right? And they pursue the hardship and they do the work, and they just haven't gotten the credit for it yet. But those people inspire me. And how are they influencing my creative process? It's just seeing this pursuit of what excellence could be or does look like. Inspires me to want to try and emulate that. And when I can't, it lets me know that I don't know enough. So it's my consistent reminder that I could learn more, I could be more, I could do more. And that I should continue to reach for those things, right? 10 push-ups feels like a lot till you find out somebody can do 50 or 100 at once. It doesn't mean you didn't work hard to get to 10, but it just provides you this ability to realize that there is so much still left that you could be, that you could achieve, that you could do. So I'd say they're just influencing my idea to continue to think bigger, think broader, to think more extensively, to challenge the current ideas I do have about certain things. Episode 12 from Michael, he said, "If you had the option for one do-over where you can go back and change a single decision you've made, what, if any, would it be?" This is interesting. I like this one a lot because in my freshman year of college, this was a topic for an English paper. And my initial answer then, my answer has changed in the last, God, I don't even know when that was. When I was a freshman in college. Hold on, how many years ago was that? 7 years ago? 6 years ago? 7 years ago. Anyway, my answer's changed because then my answer was nothing. I wouldn't change anything in my life because everything has led me to where I am right now. And I still believe in that a little bit, but I do have, if I had an option for a do-over, there's some, I wasn't always the best friend to someone. And I made some choices that I regret that cost me a friendship that was really important to me. And I've learned from that. And that's the beauty of it is, if you learn from a mistake or something, that's really maybe to some extent not a mistake. It was the cost of learning. But I know that those choices weren't right. And I regret that I regret that it cost me a friendship. So I would change the choices I made then, or that initial choice I made. So that one's that. Episode 13 with Sawyer. He says, "What is the lie you tell yourself most often, and how do you combat it with truth?" Oof. I'd say probably that I don't work hard enough, or that I'm not good enough. That's probably the lies I tell myself. How do I combat it with truth? I find the stack of proof that I have. Like, here's all the things that I did do today. Here's all the things that I've done this week, or in this X amount of time, right? To give myself, as I need undeniable proof to convince myself of it. And even sometimes that's not good enough. That I'm not good enough. And that one's still the one I'm actually trying to combat more with truth. But when I try to rely on the people who are close to me and listen to their words, their thoughts, their opinions of me, as I've been very picky and selective about the people that are even close to me. So allowing myself to trust their vision of me, their view of me, because I know that they see me in a way that I'm not able to see myself in. That's the beauty of having good friends and people around you, is they're able to see you in a position that you can't quite see yourself. And that's why you have them there. And so if they say, no, like, you are enough, you are good enough, then I need to be able to start convincing myself of that. From episode 14 with Alex, she says, if I had to ask God one question, what would it be? Oh, fuck me, man. This one's tough. One question. Shit. The fucking God, man. I don't know. If you'd asked like 10-year-old me this, I would have had such a slew of questions prepared. Now at 30, I'm like lost. I can't even. It's like just one. There's so much like that you would want to know, but I don't know. I guess just the one that's coming to mind is like, does it all really mean anything at the end of the day? All the efforts, all the time, all the commitments. Can one person really, or one way of thinking really change the world that much? Is that idea or reality really, is it as impactful as maybe we think? But yeah, I guess that's probably what I would go with. Yes, does any of it really matter? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a really bad one though. So I'm sorry. Yeah, that one, or I'll go a little bit more because I really don't like my answer a whole lot. But the other one would be like, what really happens when this is over? Like, we're told the idea of heaven and hell, and we're judged and whatnot. But like, what actually happens? Like, do we really see the people we? That's the definition of faith, I guess, to an extent. But do I actually get to see my dad again, or my best friend, or like, what happens? Like, what really happens when this is over? Episode 15 with Tahis, she asked, how do you develop the resilience to keep going during tough times? I think resilience is built by doing the harder things, by doing things that are tough. Kind of ties back to what I said earlier, and my things I learned this year was that, like, I don't regret working hard. So to know that, to kind of remind myself that I won't regret it. I won't regret the hard work that I'm doing right now. I won't regret the effort that I'm putting into this thing that I say matters to me, that's important. Yeah, I would say I think that it's just that, to acquire resilience requires, excuse me, rather the cost of resilience is to do something hard. Like, to gain resilience requires you to do hard things. When you don't want to, when you aren't motivated, when it's inconvenient, when anything in life is offering you the out and you still choose to do it anyway. And with time, the repetition of that becomes easier. That's genuinely what I think to that. And the last one is from an episode that's not quite out yet, but it was filmed already. It's from my friend Danny Chavarria. He said, if you had the privilege to know you only have 48 hours left to live, how would you spend that time? I would want to just spend time with the people that I'm closest to. Obviously, I'd selfishly want to run one more time. There's a beauty of knowing that something is, having that knowledge is probably a superpower to some extent, right? That it could be your last time. So knowing that, like, you kind of get that control, because inevitably, we're going to go on our last run. We're going to go to the gym for the last time. We're going to see our friends for the last time, and we don't know that it's the last time. So having the ability to know that it's the last time, I think you could get a little bit more out of it. I may just hey, fuck it, let's see how fast I can run this mile. Let's really see how much weight I could throw up on bench press or on squat, and because I know this will be the last time I get to do it. And then just wanting to be around the people I care about the most, the people who are the most impactful and important to me. And he said, does your answer change your perspective in any way? Maybe realizing that some areas in your life require more energy and time than others. No, I don't think it changes my perspective in any way. I don't regret the choices I've made in my life thus far, the efforts that I've chose to make in certain avenues. I don't regret working as hard as I have in my career or as hard as I have in this podcast. And then I actually have a common take to regret that a lot of people don't maybe agree with, but I think there is a certain amount of regret that is warranted. It's the fact that I can say that I regret some of the choices I made before. That's why I make different ones now. That I regret not working as hard as I did before, so I work harder now. I regret not being the type of friend I should have been at one point, so I'm a better friend now. All right? A lot of people have this, you shouldn't regret things. Like, I think you should. I think there's a certain amount of regret that's warranted in life that'll make you better. But yeah, I think, I know why Danny posed this question. Him and I had a conversation not too long about it, so I'll expand on it a little bit for context. But it's the idea that, do we, at the end of the day, kind of like, what does it all matter? That's why I actually kind of said that answer to Alex's question. But it's like, do we? It can be easy to prioritize the success or our career or the project at our job and neglect our friends or our family in those moments, right? But the moment you introduce the idea of death, everything else kind of does change to an extent, because we realize that our own lives are really fragile and short. And I think it's good to check in with that and remind yourself of that. But you can't live your life. What allows you to pursue goals for the future is the idea that, you hope you don't die tomorrow or next week or next month, and that your body is functioning well and that you're healthy and that you have the ability to plan for the future. Right? And if you just had this fear of, if I die in a couple days, then then you probably wouldn't aim to pursue a whole lot. Our lives would be made up of a lot less pursuit, which then as a result really wouldn't be anything validating or worth a lot anyway. So, if I had that time and that blessing to know that I was short on time, I would solely just want to surround myself with people I care about and enjoy and take and purposely take one last enjoyment in the things that I do enjoy. So, but that concludes all the questions from everyone. So thank you to my prior guest who did submit a question. I'm grateful for all of you. Without you guys, there would be no show. And I'm thankful to every one of you who listen. And I hope you had a great Christmas holiday time and a Happy New Year. And hope you stick to your goals that you make this year, whatever it is that you say you want to accomplish or achieve. Don't bend on that. Actually, aim to pursue it and accomplish it at a high level, and don't let others take that away from you. So, anyway, as always, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy it.